Being a walk-on is one of the most difficult things you can do in collegiate athletics. In my opinion, whomever controls the best PWO program will control their own destiny in the Big 12 more often than not. You cannot have the best PWO program unless they have opportunities for scholarships.
You are Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma State Cowboys, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Howdy, y'all, and hello, all. Welcome back to Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily stop for all things Cowboy and Cowgirl related. My name is Cody Stovall. I want to thank you kindly for stopping by to make this your first listen. We're available on all of your podcasting platforms, visually as well on YouTube. Find me personally on X at AllDayOState. Today, we get to jump right into congratulating Parker Robertson. The number 39 that you recognize is now switched to number 8, but that's because he's done enough to garner that new number, just like he's done enough to garner the attention of Mike Gundy and the rest of the staff to become a full scholarship participant now. Now, this is a big deal, not only for him and his family, but it's also a big deal for a lot of the other people that aren't quite getting enough love from Oklahoma State. But if you feel like you're good enough to play here, but maybe you're not getting a whole lot of love, this is going to be a perfect example of what you could potentially do. And this isn't just at Oklahoma State, right? This is kind of anywhere. I will say, though, that Oklahoma State is making a concerted effort to ensure that our preferred walk-on program is the best in the Big 12. And this is one sign of us doing the right thing and getting to the right ways. Parker Robertson has played in over 26 games. He has 20 tackles, forced fumble recovery. He has been the dude on special teams that has been guiding us for a couple of years now, right? Whenever you look at number 39 streaking down the field, you expect him to make some plays. You expect him to cause some fumbles. You expect him to have 20 tackles just on special teams. But this also, I think, reiterates how deep we are at the safety position. Parker Robertson definitely deserves this scholarship because he goes up every day against the deepest position group that we likely have in Stillwater. Whenever you're going up against your Kendall Daniels and your Trey Ruckers and your Lyric Rawls and your Cam Epps, that has to be difficult. And for you to not only find yourself kind of in that mold, but then to be elevated to playing time in the special teams and then dominating at that role, typically it's only a matter of time before somebody like that gets his opportunity under the lights in the big games. Now, because we're so deep at this position, it may make it a little bit difficult, but coming by way of Dallas Tejas, the 5'11", 190-pound safety, has been kind of the epitome of hard work, right? You may have heard this before. I tell my boys all the time. Sometimes you can be uber talented but not have the work ethic. Other times you can have all the work ethic in the world but maybe not have the talent. And then there's the intermediary. And that would be somebody like a Parker Robertson, where he's got the talent, but maybe he doesn't have some of the other intangibles. Him playing for the TAPS League probably didn't necessarily help him a bunch. Him playing for his dad, that certainly helped. I think his senior season they went 11-1. He had some opportunities to go to some other places, but his brother went to Oklahoma State. Coming to Oklahoma State meant a great deal to him, which also speaks volumes, right? Of course, you want everybody that you can to become a preferred walk-on that's got the talent to help your team excel. But you also like to see guys like this who are all work ethic. I think when he originally committed to Oklahoma State, he was like 5'10", 160 pounds. He's up almost 190 pounds now. That work ethic has been able to show through. And then when you see him on special teams, it's not just a guy out there getting some opportunities. He's a guy out there getting opportunities, and you expect him to produce. And if he does get in the game at safety, which he's had a couple of opportunities to do that, but maybe this is going to be a little bit of a more expanded role. Part of the expanded role is getting more opportunities in games. In order to do that, most likely you're going to have to carry a decent amount of a lead. When you have somebody like this, who's been a team captain, right, this previous season, he's been special teams MVP, 3, 4, 5 times during his time at Oklahoma State. He has the respect of the locker room. He has the respect of the safety room. He has the respect of Dan Hammerschmidt and everybody else. And he's also a shining example of what you can do if you come to Oklahoma State as a PWO. Regardless of your background or what league you came from or statistically what you're able to put up, if you show us you at least, right, bleed this game, it's probably going to help you down the line. Now, it used to be you'd send a kid to a JUCO and tell him to kind of come back in a couple of years, right, whenever he does this or gains X amount of weight or puts X amount of production on film if you're looking for a particular area of development. JUCOs, they don't have to be the pipeline per se anymore. You're seeing people go D3, D2, back to D1. And I think this is another thing that's opened the door for a lot of people. But you cannot stress the amount of development that you can get at Oklahoma State, right? We could do an episode a week on Rob Glass. We could. And the development of Parker Robertson, especially from the physicality aspect of it, it adds some credence to Rob Glass being part of the ticket to success here. Another part of it is just having the willingness to get your head beat in all the time and get back up. I mean, a lot of us have seen the movie Rudy. If you haven't seen the movie Rudy, I implore you to go watch it. But it's one of those stories, right, where you come and your primary objective is to get your tail whooped. You're not getting put out there to be the shining example of a future all-star. You're out there to give looks for the starters and the second teamers. But whenever you do create a name for yourself in amongst the starters, then it'll reverberate naturally across the entirety of the locker room. And then when you back it up with production, you get this. And this is important too, because there are a lot of places, or we've ended up with a couple guys that were told something by another school, right, including some fellow Big 12 members, and then that not exactly being the case, or maybe it's a different position, or maybe it's a different NIL package. Typically, what you're going to get at Oklahoma State is going to be pretty repetitive, right? And that's the whole objective here, is to rinse, wash, and repeat in success. We have the talent, we have the ability, we have the consistency, the continuity, and all of the coaching to get something done this year. We're not the only team in the Big 12 returning 19, 20, 21 starters, but at the same time, we're the only team that seems to be getting undervalued with that amount of returning starters. I mean, you're not seeing it all across the board. Not that there's an overabundance of places that have this number, but there's a few, and it is what it is. We'll shift gears and talk a little bit of basketball, but before we do that, y'all have to know, you have to have seen how difficult hiring is already. And if you have seen that, then you need to get with LinkedIn today. There's a reason why small businesses rank LinkedIn number one against the leading competitors. It's not just your typical run-of-the-mill job board. They have professionals that can help you find your next professional anywhere. Over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other job sites. So if you're looking at LinkedIn, you're probably looking at the right place. If you're not, well, then now you're not. 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate in the first 24 hours. Make sure you hire professionals like a professional by using the professional service of LinkedIn. Right now, you need to post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Again, that is linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Post your job there for free today. 2.5 million businesses use LinkedIn for hiring. You should too. LinkedIn is your stop. Apparently, Oklahoma State is not the next stop for four-star guard Jeremiah Johnson, which, of course, I have a little bit of a bone to pick here. But bone isn't the fact that he's requesting to get out of his NIL deal or his letter of intent, right? That does happen. The irritation that I'm going to have, and you're obviously allowed to have as well, is why did he tell us last week that he was doubling down on coming to Oklahoma State? Why did he decide that he was going to have, a conversation in regards to why he was still sticking with Oklahoma State even after the firing of Mike Boynton and the hiring of Steve Lutz? That's perplexing, right? To me, that leads me to believe that somebody else swooped in and gave you the swan song, and you had a bunch of I don't know, warm and fuzzies pushed your way. Now, that is I don't know. I mean, it's irritating. It's frustrating. But it makes me wonder if maybe this has something to do with the fact that Brandon Newman is deciding to bring his talents with Steve Lutz from Western Kentucky after playing for Purdue under Steve Lutz, when Steve Lutz was an assistant. So he played for him at Purdue, and then he played for him at Western Kentucky. And as Steve Lutz recently said in an interview, right, he was quoted as saying that Brandon coming in is going to be integral to the development of Oklahoma State because you can't replicate 4 years of postseason play in the NCAA tournament. You can't replicate 4 years of trying to kind of form your game around what the coach is looking for. That veteran leadership is definitely going to be beneficial in Stillwater. Now, would we like some young cats? Of course. Jeremiah Johnson was our only freshman of the incoming class. Maybe he's I don't know. Maybe he's scared, right? I mean, whenever you have somebody like Mr. Brandon Newman coming in, and he at this NCAA level in the NCAA tournament, right? This is a guy that that can put up, 10.1, 10.2 points a game. He can bring in 2-3 rebounds a game. He can chip in a few steals and assists per game. Just like we talked about yesterday, numerically, the guys that we're bringing in instantaneously kind of jump Oklahoma State up statistically from where we were last year. Losing Jeremiah Johnson, I mean, it hurts, of course, but we don't know what it hurts because we haven't seen him on the floor. What it hurts is the fact that we don't have any freshmen now, right? So Steve Lutz, first year on campus, is likely to be without any scholarship freshmen. Now, you can say whatever you want about the Mike Boynton situation and how he came off of the NCAA crap with limited scholarship numbers, which is accurate. But he was still able to bring forth several really good classes. Now, one of the things that I would maybe throw out here would be, could it be possible that Mike Boynton knew that his time at Oklahoma State was close to being done? I'm not saying he didn't get out and recruit, but one guy, and then that one guy is all of a sudden randomly gone. It will be interesting to see where he goes. Where he goes will kind of give us a pretty good understanding of what the conversations were like, or at least who was talking to him in regards to, getting out of his commitments at Oklahoma State. Once again, not a big deal. If you want to commit, decommit. I mean, I think it's a little bit ridiculous of how flippant it is. But that's not the issue. The issue is you come tell everybody that not only are you happy with Oklahoma State, but the reasons you were coming to Oklahoma State had nothing to do with Mike Boynton per se. It was about the university. It was about Gallagher-Iba. It was about playing Oklahoma State basketball. You talked about how you love the university, you love the campus, you love the tradition and all of that outside of Mike Boynton. Why say all that? Why not just stay silent? Unless you really, really did want to stay with Oklahoma State. Then you had your meeting with Lutz and you realized it's probably a good idea for you to continue your trajectory of coming to Oklahoma State. And then maybe you saw us pick somebody up like Brandon Newman, or maybe you've seen some of the other transfers like Arturo Dean coming in. Maybe it was the idea that you're going to have to work harder here than you ever have at any point in time in your life, because what the Steve Lutz philosophy is going to be is, again, the old school, the discipline, you're going to blood, sweat, tears your way on and off this court every single day. You're going to get bumps. You're going to get bruises. You're going to run up and down not only Gallagher-Iba, but also Boone Pickens Stadium. Might as well do it twice while we're at it type of mentality. That's what he's bringing to Stillwater. That's not for everybody. I mean, there's been a couple guys that have decided they were coming back, that were maybe a little surprising, just like there's been a couple guys that decided they were leaving that were kind of perplexing as well. I'm not concerned about the state of Steve Lutz's basketball program. The only concern here is the fact that you no longer have a freshman available, which is definitely gonna take the sting out of some of the future. But he's good at filling with transfers. The transfers that we've brought in thus far, I'd say we know statistically at least, are going to do better than last season. And is the next season of the Big 12 going to be equally as difficult when it comes to basketball? Likely, yes, right? KU was down. Houston had a phenomenal year. BYU had moments. UCF had moments. Iowa State's always probably going to be pretty daggone good in basketball. So it's certainly not going to get any easier. But when you look at the statistics from last year, in conjunction with the guys that we've brought in the transfer portal, and I don't think that's even necessarily counting Brandon here, but there's obviously an emphasis for Steve Lutz on certain things. And those certain things are probably not going to revolve around a whole lot of point scoring individually. And they probably aren't going to be super fun for a freshman. We went through this a couple of years ago with Keon Williams, the only freshman. And then now Jeremiah Johnson was going to be the only freshman. Well, now we might have 0 freshmen, which is a cause for concern. All right, let's shift gears before we skedaddle on off of here. I'm home. Therefore, I'm probably going to run up the road here and go to the new Greenwood Center so I can catch me some tennis. I don't know how I feel about the women's tennis squad at the moment, but there's some singles and doubles stuff, so we still have some opportunities for national championships individually. I'm all for it. I'm all for titles, Big 12 titles, individual titles, national titles. If they can come to Stillwater, sign me up. But before I skedaddle on off of here to go do that, let's talk a little football. And let's talk about how Oklahoma State is not the only team in the Big 12 returning 19, 20, 21 starters. We're not the only team in the Big 12 returning 86 to 91% of production. Those other teams being Baylor and Iowa State. But I do think that this is proof that there's a big difference. Baylor has technically more Big 12 titles than we do. Baylor technically has just as much opportunity to get recruits as we do. But this is a tale of 2 different scenarios, right? Iowa State, Oklahoma State, and Baylor all return anywhere between 86%, 91% of the roster. They all return minimum 19 to 21 returning starters. But those 2 squads were not a 10-win club. Those 2 squads didn't play for a Big 12 title. So those 2 squads returning a bunch of dudes from a 4-win team or a 5-win team, yes, it is a big deal. It is impressive, especially in this transfer portal era, to be able to convince that number of guys to stick around. Of course, it's a big deal. I think it does show you that there's some excitement, at least on behalf of the players, for Matt Campbell and having kind of a reemergence in the 2024 season. But Baylor, and now we know why they weren't very aggressive in the portal. They believe in these guys. Either that or they just didn't have a lot of other options. Iowa State, we know that is not the case. We know that they're going to stick with their dudes. And most of the guys that go to Iowa State are there because they want to be there. They're not there because it was the only option or always the best option. A decent amount of them, I know I can't speak, want to be there. You're seeing that Oklahoma State. Now, the Baylor thing, that's where I kind of wanted to flip this on its head a little bit. That's a little confusing to me. I like Dave Aranda, and I know they're just somewhat fresh off of a Big 12 title a few years back. So there's still some mystique. But what I saw last year did not give me any inclination that Baylor is going to be different. Now, I will say DeQuan Finn is a quarterback that everybody should get their eyes on. So if Baylor's on your schedule, whether you're an Oklahoma State fan or not, DeQuan Finn might be worth checking out. I just don't think that they have enough around him to help him be super productive, whether it be the running back position. I know, they have some dudes returning a wide receiver, but they like Monterey Baldwin, somebody who was a really good wide receiver, but dropped a lot of balls. So yes, the numbers might be the same. Iowa State and Baylor might have equal number of returning starters, equal number of percentage of the overall roster back. They might have that. but they're not returning the same level of production. And then they didn't, fill the transfer portal the way that we did. We had the benefit this year of being more like a sniper instead of the spray and pray approach. And we've been able to kind of chip away at some areas that we know we need a little bit of help. Baylor didn't do that. Iowa State didn't really do that either. Now, Iowa State does return a lot of production and firepower offensively. But Baylor and Oklahoma State are right now pretty far apart. Baylor and Iowa State are closer together, but still fairly far apart. I just don't know that Iowa State has everything it needs. I don't know that Rocco Becht is better than most of the league. I think for a freshman, he did really well. But he's also got 2 wide receivers that would start at most everywhere else in the country. The offensive lineman, good philosophy, good strategy. Some guys returning. We'll see what it amounts to. But for anybody out there, right, it's like, hey, you return the same as Iowa State and Baylor. Do we, though? Is it the same? Do they have a Heisman guy? Did they play for a Big 12 title? Did they have success in their bowl game? Did they even win their bowl games? Did they even make it to a bowl game, right? These are some of the other conversations that seemingly are not being had. Therefore, we're going to throw our hat in the ring. Yes, the numbers might be the same. The product is not the same. The coaching is not the same. The benefits are not the same. And what it could potentially lead to at the end of the season are not going to be the same for all 3 of us. I think that Oklahoma State is talented enough that we almost just got to stay out of our own way. So if Casey Dunn is aggressive enough and intelligent enough to stay out of the way, we know what we have returning. And we know what it equaled last season. So we should be able to project an advancement, right? Yeah, Iowa State, Baylor, you're going to want advancements from 5 wins, 6 wins, whatever, of course. That's the difference. Our advancement is from where we are to the college football playoff. Your advancement is from where you are to maybe getting in the Big 12 title game. And I don't think I'm dogging on them. I just find it somewhat comical when you look at the statistics that indicate Oklahoma State, Baylor, and Iowa State are returning the same amount at almost the same positions. Therefore, they're going to have comparable results. It's okay. It gives us a good opportunity to hammer the over and make sure that you do that this season to the utmost effect, because we don't get a lot of opportunities to make this kind of money, honey. All right, y'all. So we're going to have for this one right here. As always, God bless. Go Pokes. You know I love you. Thank you for tuning in to make this your first listen here in Locked On Oklahoma State. You could be anywhere. So happy you choose to be here. Go ahead and like it if you like the daggone thing. Dislike it if you don't. That's okay too. Most importantly, share, comment, subscribe. My podcasting people out there, you're the bread, the butter, the bricks, the foundation. You know what to do. Leave a review. All right, y'all. Later, my taters.